Hello, thank you for tuning into this education module. I'm Emily, and in this module, we'll talk really honestly about the real life obstacles that pop up when you commit to improving your health, fitness, and overall well being. We'll talk about troubleshooting and overcoming roadblocks throughout this process. So, you've signed up for a 6 week program designed to really help you feel better and move better and get a bit healthier. But spoiler alert, life won't pause for you in your plan. So instead of pretending that it's going to pause and that the path's going to be really smooth to our success, it's really important that we recognize that things are going to pop up along this journey and that we get equipped to steer through any of these bumps and roadblocks so that we can keep making, progress towards our health. Throughout this module, I'll be encouraging you to pause this recording as you go and make some notes. And here is your first chance to do that. So grab a pen and paper or your journal and let's get going. Habits are greater than willpower. The secret to overcoming obstacles isn't really in endless motivation. It's really the reliable habits and systems, that are going to bring you success. We all know willpower can be fleeting, so it's really important that we build our toolkit so that we can take it through life with us as we build this toolkit and really maintain healthy habits. So, the thing about habits is that they run on autopilot. Once a behavior becomes a habit, it requires really little to no mental effort on your behalf. You just tend to do it. Things like brushing your teeth don't really require any effort at all. You just know you do it every day. So willpower, on the other hand, requires active effort every single time, and that effort can drain really quickly. So willpower is pretty limited, and you can think of it like a bit of a battery. It gets depleted throughout the day as you resist lots of temptations or make decisions, but habits don't rely on this battery. They're not a limited resource, and they're built into your routine and to your identity. Habits are a lot more consistent than relying on willpower in order to make, behavior change. Some days you're motivated, some days you're not. And habits create that real stability that we're looking for, regardless of how we feel. Habits reduce decision fatigue. We all get a bit fatigued making the right decisions, and you can get drained of that after a while. I know I just mentioned that. When healthy actions like exercise or preparing meals become habits, you don't have to keep deciding on whether to do them. Fewer decisions equal less energy and increased mental clarity for other parts of your life. So that's what we're looking for. Habits also help us build momentum. Small habits compound over time. So you might start with 5 minutes of stretching or walking, and a few weeks later, it then becomes part of your daily routine and your own identity as well. So willpower doesn't naturally build momentum. It has to be renewed constantly. So that's why we talk a lot about habits throughout this program. So in short, willpower is going to get you started, but habits will keep you going. So we want to build health habits that serve you. So we start small, we stay consistent, and build systems so we're not relying on that motivation. And that's what the program is all about. So let's pause and reflect. I want you to write one positive habit that you're trying to build, and I want you to write down one negative habit you are trying to break. And we're going to pause the recording and just stop and do that. And then throughout this presentation, I want you to view all the content that's delivered throughout the lens of these two habits. I'm going to give you a real world example to be working through in your head. So sometimes life gets in the way. So we need to expect these roadblocks. And we have common roadblocks that we see all the time from participants in this program. While we're, building these amazing habits, we need to expect that life's going to get in the way a little bit. You've probably noticed this already. You might have gathered some amazing momentum and really been getting into some great habits and making great progress, and then something happens. You might get sick, a family member might be suffering from an injury or illness, or you might have something in life that's coming up that you simply can't miss, like a wedding or a 60th birthday party, or a partner's birthday or a holiday or something like that. So I guess life can be a little bit hard to plan, and we do need to expect or anticipate that that roadblocks are going to come up, and we need to know what we can do when that happens. So that's what this education module is going to focus on, recognizing that life will get in the way, but you are in charge. We're simply building the toolkit for practical, I guess we're building a toolkit of lots of like practical and helpful strategies that we can then employ when we need to help keep us moving forward throughout the health journey and throughout life. So we have lots of common roadblocks that we see from participants that do this program and participants that train with us. Today I'm going to talk about 8 key roadblocks or obstacles that people frequently encounter on their journey to getting a bit healthier. We're going to talk about actionable strategies that you can try to then help mitigate them. So grab a pen and paper, and I'll tell you when to pause and reflect, and then at that time you can just pause the recording and write down any notes. So you'll notice that as we go on, we've already covered some of these strategies throughout the program quickly, and that's okay. Revisiting them is important, but let's pull it all together today so that you can build a bigger toolkit and just really solidify that knowledge with confidence that you can handle anything that gets thrown at you. So let's start with the first most common roadblock that we hear from people. So roadblock number 1. Time and busy schedules. So for most people, that barrier will feel like, I don't have time. Maybe it's work, family appointments, or your calendar is full. But most people, I guess, don't find the time. They simply just make it by reprioritizing and, I guess, shrinking the task. So what we want to do is pause and reflect. I want you to think of a 10-minute pocket realistically where you could fit in something in your day that you've been neglecting. Now, that thing could be anything. It could be mobility, it could be walking. Think about a 10-minute pocket realistically where you can fit, at least start to build some momentum in that space. Some ways that we can beat this time barrier is, I've got a list of, these are a list of strategies essentially. So we'll go through them. Some will suit you, some won't, but it's important that we consider them and make a note of ones we want to try in the future. So to beat the time barrier, simple habit stacking is really important. You can tack a little micro workout onto something that you're already doing, or you might drink water while you're, I don't know, getting the train to work or something. And, you know, you might do 5 minutes of stretching directly after you brush your teeth in the morning. That's what habit stacking is. We'll talk more about that later in the presentation. Calendar time blocking is also another way to beat the time barrier. Simply blocking out these times in your calendar, whatever time you have. It could be 10 minutes, it could be 30 minutes, it could be 60 minutes, whatever free time. Block it in like a meeting, like any other appointment you have that you prioritize. Make sure you can get these key tasks done within that time frame, or just as much of it as you possibly can. You might only have half an hour, and you might know that's not quite long enough to get your workout in, but that's okay. Just do what you can in the time that you have. Another, I guess, way to beat the time barrier is movement alarm. Could be hourly, could be daily, could be whenever you've got it scheduled into your calendar as a bit of a reminder to stand and do the thing you need to do. Now, that could just be a quick 2-minute movement break, or it could be an alarm to get your walk done for that day. Alarms are really helpful for people who just forget, who get just sort of caught up in their day and, tend to forget about it. We've talked about this already. Bulk cooking is an absolute gift for people who are time poor. You could double recipe, you can freeze half for the future. Always saves you time. Just once again, you can cook once and eat 4 times. It doesn't have to be just leftovers. You can quadruple the batch. Another way to beat your, I guess, time barriers when you feel really time poor is to really audit your commitments and priorities. Do you have things that you do every day, like scrolling on social media or TV, or just unnecessary chores that could potentially wait? Are these crowding out your health goals? When we're going through a real switch on period, you might need to really reduce this amount of commitments and extra socializing that you do. So you really have that time that you need and that time and space for you, really. So sometimes we do need to audit the commitments, and it doesn't have to be forever. It might just be while you're going through this switch on period of really prioritizing you and getting into better habits, and that's okay. But I guess the important thing is that we audit the commitments and really think about what's getting in the way of our health goals. Planning, that's another really obvious one. That's why we cover it in the systems of success at the start of the program. Planning your meals, planning when you'll shop, planning when you'll cook, planning when you're going to do your workouts, maybe stacking your mobility onto your workout so you can get it done together. That sort of thing always saves time in the long run. So let's pause and reflect. And I guess I really want you to ask yourself, do I constantly say time is a barrier? Is that something that I fall back on? Am I always complaining I don't have time to get things done? If so, I want you to write down one tactic that you're going to try over the next week to help with that. So pause and come back when you've finished. Let's talk now about roadblock 2. This is another really common one, energy slumps. This barrier looks like people will say, I'm too tired and I've got no energy to work out, or I've got no energy to get that long walk done. That's what it feels like. And I guess when we feel like that, there is a temptation to do less. Low energy does make sitting on the couch a little bit easier and a bit tempting, which can often exacerbate those low energy days. When we give in to that to do less, sometimes it does actually zap our energy even more. Gentle movement, hydration, sunlight, good nutrition all create energy. And we did a whole topic of this, including things like sleep, water, other nutrients. They also act like a charger. So all these energy givers and these things that we've been working on throughout this program do give you energy, and that's why we focus on them so much. Energy boosters include things like sleep. So if that's something you need to focus on, then I want you to go back and revisit sleep strategies that we've already discussed and review that module. Stress relief techniques. It's really important to implement the techniques that we've been talking about over the course of this program. Hydration, that's a big one, that really obvious one. Nutrition, protein, fats, low carb vegetables, that's what this program's all about. And the movement, the types of movement that you're doing on this program, walking, stretching, strength work, are all energy givers. They're not going to deplete you, they're just going to enhance that energy. Sunshine, that's another energy booster. Have you been doing lots of indoor walking? Do you need to get outside a little bit more, get some fresh air, get some sunshine? So now let's pause and really reflect. We've done a little bit of work already on this in one of the mindset sessions in terms of energy givers and energy takers. So you might need to reflect back on the work we've done there. I want you to pause this video, and I want you to spend a minute thinking about what drains you the most. What are your personal energy takers? I want you to think about what are your energy givers. What do you know gives you the most energy? Write down your known energy givers. And then I want you to think, number 3, do you need to make any changes in your life? And write that down as well. You might have a problem, but not quite the solution, but just write it down anyway. We'll be reflecting at the end of this program on next steps. So perhaps you've learned something about yourself that you want to write down right now, something that wasn't working for you. Maybe you have the solution, maybe you don't. That's okay. Just write it down and we'll circle back to that towards the end of the program. Perhaps let's talk now. We're going to move on to the next roadblock. Roadblock number 3, motivation and consistency. Now, this is a really big one that sort of gets in the way of people achieving their health goals. People will say things like, I'm not in the mood to exercise. I just don't have the motivation. Motivation is pretty fickle. It's really not your friend. Discipline and habits and your environment is what really keeps you going. So think about like things that you do, like brushing your teeth. You don't really need a pep talk to do it. It's routine, it's habit. You don't require any motivation to do it. So I want you to pause and reflect. Can you recall a time that you've actually acted without any motivation? What was it specifically that helped you get going? Some simple consistency tricks is the 5-minute rule. Really means that like a 5-minute rule is just committing to getting started and doing 5 minutes of the activity, even if it means that you're not really committed to doing the full workout. You're just going to do 5 minutes and see how it goes. Quite often you'll notice that 90% of the time, 95% of the time you keep going, and once you get started you actually feel okay. Scheduling movement with a workout buddy, with a friend, makes it social, keeps you honest, I guess makes it more enjoyable. Using habit trackers and other visible trackers really can help, because your brain will love seeing that progress. We'll talk a bit more about that. Rewarding with a bath, with a podcast, or an early night. Non-food rewards, obviously, we want to look to in this program. We want to train ourselves not to reward ourselves with food. And we want to celebrate our wins as well. This is what helps keep us consistent. Your proud moments, add it to your log, add it to your daily wins. That's really important for keeping us going. So I want you to pause and reflect. What's one reward that you're going to use this week? Before we move on, we're going to talk in a bit more detail around habit change. To overcome inconsistency and lack of motivation, we talk about habit change, but let's break that down a little bit. And you can think about habits in many ways. We're going to talk about the 4 laws of habit change. And so you can use the following strategies to really make motivation unnecessary, because habits is really where it's at. So let's make the habit formation part of this whole thing easier. So let's talk about law 1 to creating habit change. So law 1 to creating habit change is make it obvious. Design your environment to make cues of good habits really visible and really clear. And the 2 most common ways you can do this, there's 2 ways: time and location. So this just means pairing a new habit with a specific time and location. It's pretty straightforward. To do this, you might first audit all of the habitual things you do in the day, like wake up, get out of bed, have a shower, eat breakfast, get dressed. You might have a whole list of just things you do habitually that you don't have to make decisions on throughout the whole day. And there might be 20 or there might be 50, but you simply pick one of these things and stack the new habit onto it. So like the formula for doing this and making it obvious is, I will insert the behavior at the time in this location. So let me break that down a bit. It's a great way to pair a new habit with a current habit. So you might just say the habit I'm going to do is, after the current habit, I will do this new habit. So for example, if I want to drink 2 liters of water a day, and I know I often forget to drink, maybe I'm only drinking 500 mils a day at the time, and I want to up that, I might simply use this formula for stacking habits. So after I wake up, so that's the habit you already do. After I wake up, I drink 1 750 ml bottle of water in my bedroom before I leave it. So that's how you put that into practice. So it's just stacking one habit on the other. Another one might be, when I drive home from work, I drink 1 750 ml bottle of water in my car. So we're actually we're saying the habit that we're already doing, driving home. We're saying the new habit that we are going to add on top of that. We're saying where and when it's happening as well. So it makes it really like it's just one approach. There are lots of different ways to do it. Another way, I once had a client who lined up 8 glasses of water in the morning on her kitchen bench. And every time she walked into the kitchen, she drank 1 glass. It was pretty easy for her to get the job done of drinking more water simply by making this habit a bit more obvious. Same idea, but a slightly different application of the formula, but really the same result. Different things work for different people, and that's okay. So the inverse of making it obvious is to make it invisible. Now, this is the strategy you would use if you're trying to, I guess, if you've got a habit formed and you're trying to break that habit. So, the inverse of making a good habit obvious is making an undesirable habit, I guess, invisible. So once a habit is formed, it's unlikely to be forgotten. So we have to make it, easy for us to forget it. So we simply reduce the exposure to the cue that caused it. So, for example, a lot of people might want a glass of wine while you watch TV in the evenings. Well, you simply just don't watch the TV in the evenings instead. So you're not replacing the wine with something else. You're actually replacing that negative cue with something completely different. Now, that might be going for a walk, or doing some stretching, or you might phone a friend or have a bath or anything. It doesn't matter what it is. But the important thing is you're breaking up that relationship between the two habits and you're making it less obvious and less visible. Law to habit change number 2 is making it attractive. This means you pair an action that you want to do with an action that you need to do. So making the habit far more appealing. So we're much more likely to do something when we believe it will be fun and when we will be rewarded. So you should definitely be bundling new habits with something that's very rewarding. Another way to achieve the same effect is enrolling a buddy to sort of hold you accountable. And if this is someone you don't want to let down, you'll be far more motivated to not have to tell them you didn't do it. So that's why accountability buddies are really good. And then when you tell them you did, you feel extra good about yourself because of that. And that, that builds that habit. So take a think. Are there any ways you can make your desired habits a bit more attractive? You might pause and reflect at this point. Habits are very much a dopamine-driven feedback loop. So when the dopamine rises, so does our motivation to act on that. So it's the anticipation of the reward that gets us to take the action. So the greater the anticipation of reward, the greater the dopamine spike is going to be. So the strategy is to pair an action you want to do with an action you need to do. The inversion of this law is to make it unattractive. So if you've got a negative habit you want to break, you want to make it unattractive. So for some of you, education is going to help with this. Like an example of this would be understanding the negative impacts of stress, or the negative impacts of alcohol might help you make certain habits far more unattractive. Highlighting the benefits of not doing that thing will help make it highlighting the negative effects of that thing will help make it seem unattractive. So that's another way to make some habits stick. So we've talked about making it unattractive. Law number 3 for habit formation is making it easy. So we want to reduce friction for good habits and increase friction for bad ones. So we want to make it easier to start and really maintain those good habits. And, to start any change, we like to start with small steps. That's why, over the course of this program, the things have gotten progressively more difficult as the weeks go on because we start small. It's really easy to get excited and attempt to bite off a really big task when, at the beginning, but it usually leads to it can lead to things being a bit too difficult, and it can lead to disappointment and failure. But by starting small, we can, small walks, maybe half an hour a day or 5 minutes a day, we make it far easier to do it. And from there, we're building the new habit And then it becomes easier to extend out that time slightly, because the important part is the habit, not the amount you're walking every day. That the increase is much easier. It's the starting that and the small, making it small and manageable, that makes it easier. So we want to arrange our environment to make new habits easier. If your new habit that you want to do is to work out more often, you might arrange your hand weights in your living room so it's easy to log on to your Zoom sessions, or you might, you know, you might set aside your workout clothes for the next day to make it super easy to just get up and go in the mornings, go for that walk that you're planning to do. So making it easy is really important for habit change. And obviously the inverse of this is to make it hard. So for example, if you love like potato chips and they're always in your house because your partner loves them or your kids come over and they expect them, you don't want to hide them so high up in the back of your pantry so it's difficult to reach them. Difficult to reach them without a really high chair. So you want to make it as hard as you possibly can. If you scroll too much, you might want to take your social media apps off your phone. So if you want to look at social media, you have to get on your PC to do it, or you might hide them in many layers of folders on your phone. That's another way to make undesirable habits, I guess, harder. And that's what we're talking about here with this Law 3. Let's move on now to Law 4 of good habit change, and that is to make the habit satisfying. We want to use immediate rewards to really reinforce good habits, ensuring that the behavior feels rewarding. So we find it much easier to establish a new habit when we're receiving positive feedback. I find this to be true. I like my Garmin. I like my Garmin watch for this exact reason. It tells me exactly how many steps I've taken. When I do a run, it's always finding a reason to tell me something I've done well, like a fast time I've broken or whatever. It shows me my fitness age, and when I'm doing hard things, that really helps. So it does help me gauge my progress, and I find that quite satisfying. So when we've set a goal and we start to see we're making progress, it can be very motivating and encouraging. It gives that instant feedback against your goals. And this is why habit trackers are so popular and lists are so effective. The simple act of ticking something off your list provides dopamine, as does ticking a box on a habit tracker. Also, what is immediately rewarded is generally repeated. So that's why alcohol can be a really difficult to deny for many people, because the effects are within a few minutes or even a couple of sips for some people. So that's why that immediacy of that benefit is really important. Likewise, I guess on the inverse, what is immediately punished is generally avoided too. So the inversion of this rule is to make undesired habits unsatisfying. That's why having accountability coaches here to give you a bit of a nudge are really helpful. Like if you miss something, like if you don't listen to the education video, or if you forget to fill in the Sunday survey, I'm going to ask you about it. And most people don't like that nudge, so it's undesirable to forget. And I guess that's the inverse of this law. So there we have it. We've talked about four laws of habit change, which is really important in forming good habits going forward. A lot of this content for this little mini section within this education module has been inspired by James Clear's work that he does on he's written a book called Atomic Habits, and I encourage you to read that if you're looking for more detailed information on habits. But these laws do provide a bit of a framework for creating sustainable and positive habits while breaking negative ones. Forming habits is the ultimate hack to lack of motivation, which is really one of the biggest roadblocks to success. Anyway, so that was roadblock 3. Let's talk now about roadblock 4. This is a really big one. This is super common. Socializing and, I guess, environment. So the barrier here is people who say eating out and parties derail me. So that's what this one would feel like for someone. This is common. Food, friends, good times are definitely a part of life. But, it's an important part of life, that connection, but it doesn't have to derail you. I want you to simply, actually, we'll pause and reflect later. Don't worry about that for now. Some smart socializing strategies. So we've got water, soda water, clear spirits, and soda. These are your go-tos. So start with sparkling water or just water, to slow down your alcohol consumption when you go out. If alcohol is not your thing and it's more about food, we want to, when we're dining out at different restaurants and cafes, we want to center our plate on protein, like grilled type proteins, not deep fried, and vegetables with, low carb sides. We want to request our sauces separately. So, portion control, so dressings can be applied with the correct portions if you're going to have them at all. Another thing you can do is really suggest the restaurants amongst your friends and family that have healthier menus. This is something I like to do. I like to have a bit of control over where I go to eat, so I'm not limited by menu choices. So that's another one to keep in mind. Another thing is that socializing doesn't always have to be centered around food and alcohol. This is a big one that I like to embrace as well. You might meet for a walk or a hike. You might go to a dance class or just other things that don't involve food. You might have a choir group, or you might play a sport. There's so many ways you can socialize that don't involve food, that are more active. So let's pause and reflect. I want you to write down one strategy that you're going to use at your next outing. Roadblock number 5, stress and emotional eating. Now, for people, this looks like, I'm stressed and I snack when I'm stressed. And cravings are often emotional. It's really helpful to name that feeling. It does give you power to pause and choose a bit differently. But emotional problems do require emotional solutions. So this is a highly nuanced topic and does go a bit far beyond the expertise of nutrition coaches into the realms of mental health professionals. But just let's pause and have a bit of a reflection. I want you to pause and reflect and really think about which emotion usually triggers your snacking. Not everyone else, just what triggers you personally. And the main tip I can give you is to pause, reflect, and name that emotion. Write it down. Like when it hits, if it's loneliness, write it down. Get it out of your head, and then get into your body by doing something positive. It's highly positive to address emotional emotions straight away and not just bypass them and bury them. That's a very healthy thing. But just staying in that reflection phase for too long is also not helpful for a lot of people. So we want to really just name it, write it down, and then try a strategy to bring you back in your body. Some ideas for that include some box breathing. So 90 seconds of box breathing is something simple that everyone can do. It doesn't take much time at all, and it has a really profound effect. That's simply just inhaling for 4 seconds, holding for 4 seconds, exhaling for 4 seconds, and then holding for another 4 seconds, and just repeating that for 90 seconds. Another option is a gentle walk with an uplifting audio, like uplifting sort of like music, music playlist or motivational podcast to really help lower your cortisol. Warm water is relaxing for your body and mind. So if you don't have time for a bath, a shower can be effective too. Journaling is another one. Doesn't have to be really a big thing. You can just, people often resist doing it because they feel like it has to be a really big thing and really complicated. Simply writing down 3 quick lines to really clear your mental clutter can be helpful. Even if you never go back to it, you're just writing it down, getting it out of your head. Calling a friend can be very calming as well. Reaching out to somebody. Human connection is soothing. It's one of the critical needs of all humans. So this is particularly important for people who live alone. And especially we see this in men who typically don't have a big social network outside their partners. It's important to have other connections that we can rely on when we're feeling a bit emotional. So let's pause and reflect. I want you to list three non-food comforts or calm down swaps that you can try next time you feel like you want to emotionally eat. So pause and reflect, write that down. Roadblock 6 is a really common one. This is sickness. This barrier is I'm out with a virus and I couldn't do anything healthy last week. This is common. On sick days, it's especially important to not stop focusing on your health. We don't stop focusing, we just simply pivot. In this case, recovery becomes the workout. So some of the things we can do for recovery is obvious ones like prioritizing rest and sleep, hydrating. And hydrating isn't just water, it can be broth, it can be water, it can be fruit, it can be vegetables. Short strolls, like short walks, really keep the lymph in our bodies moving, which is a really healthy thing to do when you're feeling a bit under the weather. Light stretching is really important, prevents stiffness and helps with circulation. We want to stick with nutrient-dense whole foods and avoid processed sugar. We don't want those crashes that come with that. The body is going to crave like quick energy, and it might crave sugar because it just wants fast energy. But that's not going to help you in the long run. So try more nutrient-dense soups. And if you're going to blow out on carbs, do so with fruit and vegetables and not processed carbohydrates, because at least then you'll be getting the nutrients, vitamins, and all the minerals that go with it. So now let's pause and reflect, and feel free to stop this recording for a sec. When you're sick, what helps you with self-care? What really helps you recover? How can you prepare for sickness? Are you going to stock up on some soups in your freezer and always make sure there's something like that available in your freezer during winter? Just pause and reflect and really plan one self-care action that you're going to do on your next sick day. Roadblock 7 is pain, injury, or chronic illness, and this is another common one. This looks like, oh, my body hurts, I can't train. It's a little bit similar to the last one. Pain does change the plan, but just not the goal. We need to work within our limits, obviously, and progress is still important. It is really difficult being in pain, and I just want to acknowledge that, especially when it's more than just a simple injury, but like chronic pain or a really big injury. It can be quite tough, but there is always something we can do. We don't want to push through pain. We simply want to move around it and keep adapting. So let's pause and reflect. I want you to name a movement that feels good on your flare-up days, or feels good when your injuries flare up. Not exercise, but movement. So it could be like things like yoga, Pilates, stretching, breathing, hydrotherapy, gentle walking. Pause and have a bit of a reflect, because that's going to help position your mind what you can do, not what you can't do. Let's look at some tactics of how we can adapt. We want to modify workouts, not skip them, for lower impact moves. So we want to swap things like running for walking, swap weights workout to maybe a body weight workout or bands. We want to lower the impact of our cardio that we're doing. So some really good options are things like swimming and cycling and walking. Most of our strength workouts are fairly low impact already, but if you're looking to modify, try body weight, or less sets or less reps, try different movements, or just ask your trainers, because they're used to adapting for this. This is nothing new. Stretching is really important when you're feeling when you've got an injury. We want to keep working on gentle mobility every day, because this is going to keep our range of motion. And then once we're ready and we're feeling recovered and injury-free, our body can then move into the type of exercise we want to be doing. So yes, you might have to build strength and fitness after an injury, but it's quite hard to do that with poor posture and mobility. So we do have to keep on top of our mobility. Start incorporating rest days when necessary. Listen to your body when it whispers. Don't wait for it to shout at you, and don't wait for the injury. If it's whispering at you, listen. That's really important. And post-injury, obviously, we increase things quite slowly. Roadblock 8, lack of support. This is a big one. It can feel like no one gets it. It can feel really lonely to be leveling up on your own. It can be disappointing when people around us don't support us. And sometimes it's because they don't get it. They don't understand what you're trying to achieve. Maybe you haven't had that tough conversation with them of why it's important to you. Or maybe they just can't empathize because they've never been in a situation where they've needed to improve their health. Sometimes it can be tough for other people to watch you changing and leveling up. They like you. They like you the way you are. They might be afraid that you'll leave them behind in your journey to self-improvement. So that's understandable as well. Your progress might also challenge others' comfort zones and their own health journey. Maybe it's holding up a bit of a mirror to the things that they're not doing and the lack of action in this area in their own life. So that's something to consider as well. So let's pause and reflect. Who lifts you up? Who drains you? I want you to write it down on a piece of paper. And yes, it can be confronting to do this. And it doesn't mean we have to remove all the people that drain us from our life. But, while we're going through this journey of leveling up, we might choose to spend a little less time with them and really guard who you want to share, important things with, that will help. Those people should be people that are going to support you and help you move towards your goals. So some builders, some things we can do to gain that support is having that honest conversation. Be brave. Share your goals with your partner, your friend, or your colleague. Have that conversation with them about why it's important. Another thing you can do is choose a positive circle. Seek out those who really encourage and energize you. Accountability. We want to pair up with people for regular check-ins who will, walk with you, who are happy to share your journey with them. And that's part of what this program is about, having that group of like-minded people. We want to show and lead by example and not preach healthy habits. That's a big one. People don't like to be told what to do or preached to, but they will ask you what you're doing if you're leading by example. Joining a like-minded group. You've already done that. You've joined this program. But what about when it ends? Yes, you still have other members of the TBFT community, and you might still want to keep your connections from this program, and that's good. Or do you need to extend out that a bit and find some more people, some more support, a walking group, a dance group, another group? So pause and reflect. Write down one way you'll ask for or even offer support this week. Support breeds support. So sometimes the best way to get support is by being supportive of other people. All right, now let's just, so we've covered 8 roadblocks or 8 obstacles that can get in the way of our progress in our health. It's important to remember that it's about progress, not perfection. Every challenge we discussed today is real and it's manageable. Your health journey won't be perfect, but it can be consistent and you can be resilient and it can be rewarding. Progress comes from really just showing up, adjusting, and just keeping a bit of perspective. So I want you to pause and reflect at this point. I want you to write what's one small step you're going to take this week that's going to support your health, something that you've thought about while listening to this recording. And just remember, guys, progress takes time. We have to expect obstacles. That's part of life. You can overcome them. It's just all about building this really big toolkit. And that's what you're here on this program to do, to just extend out that toolkit, get a few gold nuggets that are going to just give you more to work with in your day-to-day life. We have to keep practicing these things, these strategies in order to progress. So good luck with it all. I hope you got something out of this education module, and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you for watching.